May the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be always acceptable in thy sight, the Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen.
Amen.
You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. The words of the patriarch Joseph to his brothers. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. One of the most fascinating stories in the Bible is the story of Joseph and his brothers, starting in the 37th chapter of the Gospel of the book of Genesis and going to the end of Genesis. The story has drama, intrigue, revenge. In fact, if we were to put a subtitle on the story, we might entitle it Patriarchs Behaving Badly. But the story has everything. It's a fascinating story, and it's a story at the end of reconciliation, and a story that poses the larger question. When bad things happen to good people, can something good come out of this? We began the story of Joseph last Sunday, at the beginning of the story, when he's very young, and we conclude the story this week. So think of it as a two-part, last week and this week. Joseph, as we meet him in the 37th chapter of the book of Genesis, Joseph is a young man who is very full of himself. Joseph is a very inflated young man at the age of 17. He's also one who is not cautious about sharing things with others who may not appreciate what he's telling them. Joseph goes to his brothers, and keep in mind that Joseph is the favorite brother, the son of Rachel as well as Jacob. Joseph goes to his brothers and says, listen, I had this great dream last night. I dreamt that I was in the middle of 12 sheaves representing you. And all your sheaves were bowing down to me. One can imagine the feelings that the brothers may have had about this dream of Joseph. But then he goes further. He says, listen, last night I had another dream. I saw the sun and the moon and the stars, and they were bowing down before me. This dream is a little bit too much for even Joseph's doting father, who says to him, Joseph, is the universe indeed to bow down before you, including your mother and your father? But Joseph is the favorite son. Joseph is the one that his father has given the coat of many colors. And this coat becomes, for Joseph, a sign of his favoritism, and for the brothers, a focus for their hatred of Joseph because of this very favoritism. And so one day, when Joseph is 17, the brothers are off pasturing their flock in a distant area. Joseph is sent by his father to check up on the brothers and see how they are doing. The brothers see Joseph approaching from a distance and begin to conspire about what to do with Joseph. So great is their anger and their hatred that they actually conspire to murder him. Until one of the brothers says, no, this is a bridge too far. Let us simply throw him into a pit and decide later what we're going to do with him. They do this, and at this point, fortuitously, a caravan of Ishmaelites pass in the distance. The brothers haul Joseph up out of the pit and sell him as a slave to this caravan bound for Egypt. Joseph has gone, in a short period of time, from the favored son to a soon-to-be slave in the land of Egypt. But Joseph is one who, as his dreams suggested to him, one who always lands on his feet. And upon arriving in Egypt, a series of events where he rises in the ranks in the household of the Pharaoh, finally in the course of time elevates him to the position of second in line in Egypt, second in the government in Egypt. He is now only under the Pharisee, and he becomes the administrator of the entire kingdom. And at this point, he makes a crucial decision. He sees that famine is coming, and seeing this, he makes plans to store enough grain so that when the time of plenty is over and the time of famine comes, there will be enough grain for everyone. And Joseph does this, and the kingdom is saved, and the storehouses are ready for the famine. At this point, there is a visitation from the land of Canaan. It happens to be the brothers of Joseph who sold him into slavery. This is now 13 years later. Joseph is now a man of 30, wearing the robes of great leader. The brothers appear before him, not recognizing who he is, and entreat him to share with them, if possible, some of the food that is available in Egypt and not available in Canaan. Joseph knows his brothers. He recognizes who they are, but he hides this from them and sends them out with provisions. The brothers think they have paid for provisions, but when they're a day's journey out, one of the brothers opens his bag and discovers the money still there. The brothers are horrified and think that Joseph will think that they have done this. They continue on to their father with the food, but again famine stalks the land, and they have to reappear to Joseph to ask for more food. They come down to Egypt, realizing that at this point Joseph is probably furious for them, furious at them, and believe that they have tried to pull a con on him. They appear before him with double the money and gifts, and again entreat him for some extra food. Joseph, still knowing who they are, and the brothers still not knowing who Joseph is, Joseph gives them the food they need and sends them forth, but hides his own silver cup in the bag of his brother. Again, they take a day's journey away. They discover the cup, and at this point, Joseph has sent an emissary to seize them and grab them and arrest them and haul them back. They appear again before Joseph, who appears furious at them and says, "I will only let you go if you will bring back the youngest brother, Benjamin." Make a journey back to get the youngest brother. They return again to Joseph. All of them are together. Joseph then, for the first time, reveals who he is. He says, "I am Joseph, whom you sold into slavery." Joseph is highly emotional. The brothers, we can only imagine what they're feeling. Joseph is overcome with emotion, falls upon his beloved younger brother Benjamin. They embrace, and it's a family reunion. But at this point, Joseph says something very interesting. He says to his brothers, whom he has now forgiven, he says to his brothers, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. And what Joseph is saying, I believe, is not that God engineered this whole thing simply so that he could effectuate a reunion. What Joseph is saying is that even though the brothers intended evil, God is able to bring good out of even evil situations. Because, after all, it was because of their return that they were able to find food and find sustenance. There's a story in the Gospels, similar to this one, concerning the man born blind. And after Jesus heals the man, the Pharisees said, "Who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Forgetting for a moment the stupidity of the question, how could he have sinned if he was born blind? But Jesus answers in this way. He says, "Neither, but rather that the works of God could be made manifest through him." And the works of God, of course, is the healing. I'm always fascinated by people's reactions after they have been treated for cancer. If someone were to say to you, "Would you like to have cancer?" obviously you would say, "Are you kidding?" But the fascinating thing is that so often when people have been diagnosed with cancer and have been healed, if someone says to them, "Would you rather not have gone through this?" they will think for a moment and they will say, "You know what? I'm a better person now. I'm a different person. I'm a wiser person as a result of this cancer. And so, as difficult as it was, I would not have this taken away from me." About 15 years ago, I had a strange experience in my life. One day I woke up and felt a great sense of tiredness. I didn't feel myself. I couldn't tell what was wrong. I just knew that there was something wrong with me. I'd spent some time in the woods, and so I was thinking it might be Lyme disease. Went to the hospital, was given a Lyme test, negative, no Lyme disease. And yet this problem persisted, and in fact got worse. It got so bad that we postponed the day that we were to leave for vacation because I simply didn't feel up to travel and to packing. We arrived at our vacation place and the strange illness continued day after day. I would wake up in the morning feeling fine. I'd say to my wife Janice, "I don't know what all that was about, but thank goodness it's over." And then as the day went on, the afternoons started, I would again feel this weariness. I would feel my temperature rising day after day with no resolution. Finally, after almost 2 weeks, I took it upon myself to go to the emergency room of the hospital. I was given every possible medical test that they knew of. Nothing was diagnosed. Again, they gave me the Lyme disease. It was not Lyme, it was something else, but nobody knew what it was. But fortunately, they put me on a protocol for doxycycline. And within 5 hours, my temperature had dropped to normal. I felt better. Whatever this mystery illness was, apparently was gone. Later, several days later, weeks later, I was not diagnosed, but a doctor suggested that what I had was ehrlichiosis, which is a kind of variant of Lyme disease and is a tick-borne illness. And so the doxycycline worked. But the thing about going through this is the fact that I was one of these people who had never really been sick. I'd had little illnesses, but I'd never really been sick. And this thing put me on my back. Up until then, in the back of my mind, if someone else was sick, I'd sort of thought, well, it's probably their fault. They're probably not living in a healthy way. I was somewhat lacking in sympathy. But this experience with ehrlichiosis taught me 2 things. It taught me how much others cared about me how concerned and worried they were about me. And it also taught me for the first time to really notice that when people are sick, it's not their fault. Something can happen to us, and it can affect us deeply. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. All of us will have bad things happen to us at some time in our life. I don't believe for a second that this is God's visiting misfortune on us to teach us some lesson. But I do deeply believe that when such a thing happens, God can bring good out of even bad situations. When bad things happen to good people, and they do, sometimes, often, maybe always, good can come out of even bad situations. Amen. Let us join